The crypto market is pumping, and Kev and I are here to break it all down for you. We'll be discussing everything going on in crypto, the latest with inflation, Trump versus Powell, and much more today on Money Never Sleeps. Thanks for joining us today, everybody. As we get going, do us a favor, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel. Remember, nothing Kevin or I say is financial advice, so please do your own research for making any buys or sells. Kev, it is a wild day here in crypto. Alt season appears to be here. Bitcoin dominance taking a bit of a hit. Bitcoin still looking strong, but alts are out in front at the moment. Meanwhile, TradFi green on the day, but nothing compared to what we're seeing in our favorite digital assets. How are you doing on this wonderful Wednesday?
I'm doing great. It's good to see things that we've been talking about for a long time start to finally play out, the narratives and everything like that, both in equities that we've liked, whether it's a stock or a coin, and then just seeing some crazy stuff happen, in Asia. This is a very fun time. As quiet as the summer has been in terms of volume, I think we're going to have a really good end of the year. Lots of stuff to talk about. But yeah, fun times in crypto if you're a Farcoin holder. Also some fun times if you were looking towards an altcoin season with this drop in Bitcoin dominance, right?
Yeah, we are seeing a lot. I say we just briefly talk about equities.
Yeah,
because there's not a whole lot going on there. I mean, we can talk about bigger data first. So yesterday we had the CPI print. It came in kind of mixed overall. Today we had the producer price index, which came in actually significantly better than expected, although we did have some revisions to previous ones that were revised higher. So could explain why CPI came in, somewhat hot yesterday. So there is that, but otherwise not a whole lot on the economic data front. So we got that out of the way. We had, what else on the macro side of things? The bill for the, everything crypto related here in the US, It got sent back yesterday. So the market kind of panicked. I posted on Twitter that this was just an opportunity to buy because this was going to go through. It was the most obvious, it's being sent back for a few revisions, and then everyone overreacted to it. So it allowed me to buy some more Fartcoin. I know you did as well. So we had that happen. And then the big thing is the increased rhetoric around, Jerome Powell resigning or Trump trying to figure out a way to fire Powell, which I think would be a monumental mistake. That would be so, and it's just so funny how all of these people who have become uber vocal about, firing Powell or him resigning, they probably, maybe listen to one or two pressers of his ever. They've probably no idea what the Fed does. It's pretty crazy that these people are so vocal and so confident in their opinion, yet having no fucking clue what they're talking about.
You think Trump wants to get rid of Powell and he could blame him for all this shit that fucking collapses if there is a major financial collapse, right?
Yeah, because what's going to happen is he can either, if things go poorly, he can just blame Powell. And if things go well, he can take all the credit himself for firing Powell. So it's really, he's trying to set up a win-win. And all of his, Cynthia Lummis, who the senator from Wyoming, who I've been a fan of because she's been advocating for crypto, is now 5-6 times a day tweeting about how Powell needs to resign. I'm just you're saying this and saying he needs to lower rates, but you're also on board with Trump's tariff. So I don't know what exactly you think is going on here, but I don't want to make this a political show.
Yeah. Last thing I should say about politics and why it's just funny, then we don't have to say anything else about it. Next year is an election year, right? So if something bad does happen, Trump is obviously, needs a scapegoat or he needs to blame it on someone. I think Jerome Powell is the perfect person for that right now, unless something happens with, Russia, China, some of these trade deals, something happens that causes a lot of problems. But, going into this, he kind of needs Powell as much as he doesn't want him around. That's the really interesting part here. So, everyone's saying that he's going to quit. I don't know. I think it's more advantageous if Trump keeps him. I think if Jerome Powell quits himself, that's more of a Trump screwed situation.
Yeah. I don't get the feeling that Powell really wants to quit. I think he wants to see, he's done in May of next year. I think he wants to see it through. I think he's done a better job than some of the brainwashed people out there think. All right. Anyways, we got that out of the way.
Do you need
Let's
to talk
go.
about one thing?
Go ahead.
Insider sells. Getting lots of them like crazy. All right. I'm pulling up Twitter. Obviously, that's our source of information everywhere we go, right? But Bar Chart posted this yesterday or earlier today. Yeah, earlier today. Insider trading activity obviously picking up. You can see that going into the 15th. Seeing a lot of sales here. The volumes are picking up. Seems more so around the OPEX, right? You saw right here around the middle of June. This would be the middle of June or so. But these volumes, you don't like to see it. Where are we seeing that? Well, it's kind of coming back down here where we're getting Amazon, another 1.5 billion worth of Amazon shares being offloaded. So what is that, like 3 billion now or something like that, if I'm not mistaken? And then Jensen Huang, 37.6 million. And Jensen's actually recurring. This has been going on for the past 2 or 3 weeks. He's offloading, $30 to $40 million every few days. I shouldn't say every few days, probably like once or twice a week for the past few weeks. This is very interesting because we saw this back in February as well, early February, late January. And I keep saying that these OPEXs that are quarterly, they're very important. You see a lot of repositioning. So seeing some of the people on the inside get ahead of things, maybe they're getting ahead of things while the market's at a pretty much all-time high, kind of concerning. The other thing that we kind of want to see, and maybe we don't get it until a little bit later into the summer, is you want to see some of these bank CEOs offloading some of their shares. If you see that, not saying that's confirmation that something bad's going to happen, like a flash crash or like something that we saw with, April, where it was 10% drop in the equity markets, but it is a pretty good indicator that, okay, maybe even them, the ones who don't sell often, are taking some off the top to, clear some profit. I'm waiting for Jamie Dimon or Brian Moynihan from Bank of America to offer some of that information, some of those filings. But if we continue to see this kind of plays into the narrative of that, okay, something potentially could be happening around that September OPEX.
Yeah, we had Bezos sell 1.5 billion worth of shares as well, but he just needs to get his supply of steroids and HGH and everything. So that's nothing to worry about. Probably needs to pay for some more weddings or surgeries or honeymoon or whatever. Let's go to crypto because that's the main event right now. That's where all the fun is happening. We've seen a big rally today across, a little bit of Bitcoin, but mainly the alts. ETH finally taken the lead here, has made a big move past 3,300, approaching 3,400, sold back in the 170s, XRP over $3, AVAX kind of lagging a little bit, but we're seeing, with ETH moving, the ETH meme coins, Pepe, Shiba Inu, those are starting to move as well. So now the question becomes, do we see Solana take a bigger step forward? Maybe that's the next rotational spot. And with that, some of the Sol meme coins, like our beloved fart coin. But let's start Bitcoin and Bitcoin dominance, and then we can roll into the alts.
Absolutely. So I talked about this the other day on our last show. I said that you don't want to see a nasty wick up and then it just doesn't get filled. You kind of got that up here when we hit that 123 level. Could Bitcoin go up higher? Obviously, yes. We aren't opposed to that scenario. But again, I don't like those nasty wicks. I've seen those nasty wicks before. You tend to see them at local highs, right? You got one here. You got one here. You might even go back further. You got one here back in 2022 or so. And that was 2024, my bad. 2022 is a lot lower. You see these wicks right around these areas. They kind of indicate that, okay, there's a lot of selling pressure up there. We got it here so far. Let's see if we can retest it. The other thing is we want to see where support potentially could be. You got a pretty good gap right here. 50 moving average is at 108. Kind of be in line with our our level of resistance that we've been talking about for a while, that 108 level, has been pretty good. Obviously, we broke through it right now, but let's see how long this lasts. I think the monthly and the weekly charts, once we get closer to the end of the month, we'll kind of have a better idea of if this was something that's sustained or if this is just something that's like, this is a pretty big monthly wick, right? Let's see how things close there. Outside of that, you're seeing Bitcoin dominance drop as the price is still somewhat elevated. It looks like it's going for the 200 EMA on the daily. Let's see what this looks like on the weekly. I'm interested to see. Well, this kind of looks like, if it has to find some support. If it doesn't, it's looking like 60%, 60.91% on the weekly, 50 EMA. Does it go there? Depends. Is this alt season, right? I think that's the kind of the thing that we have to decipher. I think if it goes down that low, there's a good chance we get a little alt season. But if it stays relatively around that 60%, no guarantees that alt season is like 2021, right? I think that's the key thing. Bitcoin dominance is going to put it's going to temper it should temper expectations, how high some of these things can go. Like I'm seeing XRP, Ethereum, a lot of these other things kind of broke out of resistance, but it's very possible that we're just looking at something very similar to what's going on with Bitcoin. If the top of Bitcoin is somewhere around here, this 123 to 125 range, and then say on the monthly, it's a wick down and we close somewhere along 109, 110 or so, it's going to be very, very much seeing how Bitcoin dominance stays relative to where a lot of these prices are kind of like finding some resistance. Again, everything seems like it's kind of breaking out today. Let's pull up Ethereum real quick, and we can just kind of go through these. Ethereum obviously is breaking through this massive bull flag, right? This is something that's been going on since April. So right around the time that we got the tariffs the first time around and the market crash, we're already at 198.43 on the stochastic. And you can see that we're pretty much getting to a point where we're topping out on the MACD. This is on the daily. So honestly, some type of retracement is probably likely. The thing is, these things can, push up a little bit higher if this is a squeeze that we're kind of watching here.
Which
Ethereum,
I think it is. Like we had recently, there's been a lot posted about how there was more short positions opened against ETH than ever in history. And I think that
absolutely.
we've seen a ton of liquidations, not just in ETH, but across the board in crypto.
Yeah, and then Tom Lee of Fundstrat and Peter Thiel both going in on ETH longs, right? There's some type of ETF, I believe, that Tom Lee found or is like on the board of now, and Peter Thiel invested in it. And that's a lot of money going into Ethereum. Makes sense why the price is pushing up as dominance is coming down. Obviously, ETH taking some of that market share dominance. But this is the problem when things look really bad. This is why you don't short a boring market. Altcoins have been very boring for pretty much a long time. Even though the prices have gone up since the April low, it's nothing exciting. It's not like, remember Bonk and some of these other coins that were going like ape shit back in 2021, 2022, like right at the end of, I guess, beginning of 2022, when you had these little, or even the metaverse. I remember Mana and the Decentraland,
Oh my God.
Sandbox, all that crazy shit going on. Where are those? Outside of that, these things do take its turn right now. It just seems like ETH, a lot of short positions are out there, a lot of liquidations. Kind of scary too, because that means that people who have a feeling that the market could turn down are going to be shaken out of their positions, not by fear of getting liquidated. No, just by getting liquidated. It's going to be very complicated to see where things top out, and that's why, like I said, shorting here, I think, as close as we are to where I think there is going to be a pretty good retracement across all equity markets and even crypto. I think it's very dangerous to be playing that game. We saw it in Bitcoin. We're seeing it in ETH. Look at some of these other ones. See, there's a lot of things like technical analysis are pointing at levels of resistance in alts. Question is there more short positions that they could liquidate higher? Can people get out at a higher position? Could they suck people in at a higher position to think that we're going into a higher alt season than we actually are? Is this something you just kind of have to look at the rotation of capital and look at where Bitcoin dominance is and kind of see where things are, finding resistance? And a lot of indicators are pointing that, okay, this is a pretty overblown territory. We got to be careful if we're going to be adding positions. XRP, maybe it does go a lot higher, but again, I see that bull flag. think that what we're seeing here is very similar to what we saw Bitcoin pushing up a little bit higher and then just falling right back into kind of the technical analysis that it might be trading in. That's a FU, middle finger to anyone who's going short. Same thing with, let's go to Solana, because that one's going to be really interesting, because I think that this one's not done yet. I think Solana has a little bit more room to the upside because we got our origin to the A wave. The B wave came down lower, but not as low as the origin. So it tells me that the C wave should go higher than the A wave. So where's that, 187 or so? It's very possible that we get to, that 200 mark, I think is likely. If you were looking at maybe it goes a little bit higher, maybe somewhere around 225. There's a little gap right here. But, saying that right after what happens there, it's probably going to be to the downside from there, because we finished our ABC wave. And if everything kind of is taking that rolling over effect, not this month, not next month, but the month after or so, in that September OPEX, I mean, that's probably the height of everything that we can kind of expect for Solana. So what does that mean?
I'm going to give I wanted to take a second and give like my non-technical bullish case on alts. We've talked at nauseum about the amount of money that is sidelined right now in like big money. Like I'm not talking about like, your crypto Twitter people who have a few grand to their name. I'm talking about like people with like 8-9 figures. And there's a lot of money out there, and they're going to want a piece of the pie. And, a lot of people who are deep into crypto may not see the value of an ETF, but a lot of the big money people who have no interest in self-custodying crypto, they see the value in the ETF. And we've seen that BlackRock's Bitcoin ETF is now their most successful one. And like other companies have taken notice of that. So we're seeing ETH ETF inflows increase. We're seeing the Sol ETF get started. We're seeing XRP. We're even seeing like some blended ones that are part Bitcoin, Sol, ETH, XRP. I forget which other coin is in there as well. But I think that the bull case for a continued alt season is that like we have the money supply increasing. We have all this sideline capital, and they're starting to see that like these major institutions are getting behind crypto. Like Jamie Dimon can say all the bearish shit he wants, but as JP Morgan, like they're getting more and more active in crypto. So I don't really care what he says. I care to see the actions that JP Morgan is taking, and they're getting deeper and deeper into the waters of crypto. So I think there is still, I think there is still blow off top potential here for ETH to go to, 5K plus. I think Sol back to 250 isn't out of the realm of possibility. Like XRP to, fucking $10 even. Like there's a lot of reasons. Like, yes, there's stuff to be concerned about. Like I saw something that retail is the most risk on they've been since like 2008. And I was just like, oh, fuck, that's a bad sign. But at the same time, like, I think that there is reason in crypto to remain bullish. So I'm not selling anything at the moment. I'm not, I haven't taken profit yet, but I think that there will be an opportunity to do that in the coming months. And, don't shit yourself just because the normal suspects on crypto Twitter are bearish.
Yeah. I'm actually bullish on crypto right now. And I'll give my case too. I think we got 2 months, right? I want to see things play out for the next 2 months and see if we get some of these blow off tops, we get some of this, these really big rallies. Because I do think we are going to see, Bitcoin capital rotate into other things. I think if the fact that ETH is going up right now, people might be like, well, let me just throw some gains in there, see if I can make, 5 to 8% or so real quick on a quick trade. I think that's very possible. Where I think that we have big problems come with, broader market liquidity. Again, those September loans coming due. And that's just when they start picking up a lot. This goes all the way into like January, February, March of next year, where it would be 5 years since the pandemic loans, right? Those are the most amount of that people took out, and that they have to be repaid. So if there is a liquidity crisis because of that, that's one thing. The only thing that I think that's extremely bearish for crypto in the mid to long term is, again, I shouldn't say mid to long term, I should say short to mid term, is that liquidity affecting MicroStrategy, right? I think that's the biggest black swan that we could be looking at because, again, you had Ryan Cohen going on Fox Business yesterday and also CNBC, and he talks about how much cash they have on hand. Michael Saylor does not have cash. That's why they continue to do the convertible bond issuances. If we are in a liquidity crisis and people need to hold on to the DXY, and the DXY looks very primed, I'm not saying it goes up next month or the month after, but it does look like there is good long-term potential for it, considering we're at the lows. And the last time we were at the lows, we saw the DXY bounce pretty strong. Again, Forex currency is going to be very important to watch over the next few months. But that is your bear case. We have no shots. That being said, I think a lot of people on the inside might know if that's the case. Therefore, we could see those little blow-off tops there. Just extract as much liquidity as we possibly can from this market. I think that's very possible. So that's why I'm bullish on crypto right here. I think that we got, at least 2 months to see what happens. But that's why I'm buying Fartcoin. I hate to pump my own bags, but I am, because hot air rises. And I love this chart, and I think that being 1.32 billion market cap, and we look at how some of those blow-off tops happened in 2021, good reason to believe that maybe there is a decent amount of room to the upside for some of these smaller market cap things. It's the same thesis that I have for, being bullish on GameStop, FFAI, and some of these other, short squeeze stocks that are extremely low market cap in equity in TradFi. And if we, I'm just going to jump into them right now. If we need anything else on crypto.
Go for it.
Yeah, pulling these up, we're looking at IPA. Look at that squeeze, right? There's a lot. This is something that the market cap is $86.04 million. And obviously it was a lot less back here in June. And you see where it is now, and maybe it's not done, right? It's retracing a little bit. You got a little bit of a gap here, maybe continues up higher. But, if this thing were to shoot up to, we had this massive squeeze here back in July of 2021. It went all the way to about $16 or so. Doesn't have to go that high. Obviously, it depends on how much money wants to bet on something like this. But, going to $4 or $5, if there is greater demand, greater squeeze for it, it's very possible. Looking at FFAI, I continue to talk about this one. Again, this is what UBS, we believe, is using to counteract big GameStop, losses from the Credit Suisse toxic bag. And, it shot up again today, put in a new local high at 230. It's up 9.1%. Yesterday, it was up, actually, the day before, it was up 16.57%. So you're seeing this shoot up. Market cap is still 216 million. Again, we're talking about stocks like they're altcoins here. Low market cap. A lot of the big boys are probably going to see the rotation of capital come out, move in. That being said, GameStop's another one that's really interesting. I had to pull up the Bollinger Bands for this, but you have an implied move coming for GameStop very soon. You're out of the triangle. You got the 50 and the 200. Did it cross completely? Yeah, I got to play it. I got to play it for GameStop real quick. Again, not scared by that one bit. It's just how it's been trading, but you're in for an implied move in volatility with the Bollinger Bands being this tight. You're out of this, year-long triangle, and you got the death cross right there. What happens when you get a death cross? Usually you bounce out of it, right? There's a decent-sized rally that comes from it. We also had Ryan Cohen yesterday pretty much saying that they are looking at eliminating shorts. That's kind of the base case of what they want to do. They have a ton of cash on hand, and they're waiting to deploy it. He even said if the market pulls back 20%, we have the cash on hand to make smart decisions. Limited low downside and high potential to the upside. They're also bought $500 million worth of Bitcoin back at, what was it, like around 100K or so. It's at 119 today, and we're at this point where I continue to say this. I think if Japan does have an issue with liquidity, you're going to see a lot of these shorts unable to cover. We're looking at the Japanese bonds. It's pulled back since hitting all-time highs. You look at the Nikkei, it's doing kind of this floating. We don't necessarily know how much we can push this up higher. And then you look at some of the currencies like the yen, it's very possible that we're looking at the yen right now and there's a good drop coming, and the yen could get stronger, and maybe this is just momentary, as the dollar is also looking for a retracement here as well, finding resistance on the 50 moving average right there. So there's a lot of things lining up for a good move to the upside for smaller stocks, low market cap. And it's very possible that we could be here in a week and GameStop could be trading over $25, $26. I think we're going to probably see that after OPEX because a lot of people make money keeping some of these stocks, dampened so that the price doesn't go up too much. They don't lose money. But again, we've talked about this before. GameStop is only profitable for short sellers if the price is under like $1. That's how long they've been short. So just imagine how much pain they are in. The higher it goes, they're going to have to cover. We're talking margin calls. And when there's no money to pretty much keep buying naked shorts on GameStop, we're talking about, true price discovery where we could actually see the price move up. Now, if Robinhood or Fidelity or all these people decide to turn off the buy button, we might never know the true value of GameStop, but I think we are in really good conditions actually for seeing this end of quarter rally, I should say, whether it's crypto or stocks.
All right. I think that is going to wrap it up for today's show. Appreciate those of you who joined us. If you have not yet, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, drop some comments, follow us on social media. We are going to be off for a little bit here. Kev has some stuff going on. I got some stuff going on. But we'll be back next Friday, which is going to be the 25th. There's also not a ton going on. I mean, I say that and watch like shit's going to get weird over the next like week and a half. But we'll be back for, end of month stuff with earnings, Fed meeting, all of that jazz. So have a great rest of your week, everybody. Appreciate you joining us, and we will see you next time.
If anything does happen, blame Asia. Take care, everyone.